episode, I am speaking with Alan Akira to talk about his life lessons and how to think through problems in life and business. Alan is an MD, is a board certified psychiatric and the founder of Mugen Psychiatry, a practice serving patients in the inpatient environment and in around Chicago, Illinois. His mission is to bridge the disparity in psychiatric care to community psychiatric settings with his passions and skills in clinical decision making, continuing education, entrepreneurship in medicine, system based learning and practices, and healthcare management. Alan, welcome to this episode of the Success Secret podcast.
Thank you, Hussein. I'm very happy to be here. I appreciate that introduction.
Awesome to have you. So I would say this is I would say rare introduction. Not many of my guests have this type of introduction. So first of all, because I want to learn that you've been through a lot, your business, you are doing things that are multiple things at the same time. So we're talking about clinical decision making, education, entrepreneurship in medicine, system-based learning. These are a lot of things that could integrate together and also have separation, I guess, in the same time. That could be the case. So I want to know, what is your definition of success personally, and what do you see people around you that you agree or disagree with in this regards to success, and what does it mean?
To me, success means being useful because a lot of times when people talk about success, it's framed as a certain end outcome or a certain particular goal. The problem with this kind of thinking is it's all or nothing. You either reach the goal or you do not. And what I've learned through my life and speaking with over 10,000 people in my clinical practice is that only a couple things happen when you put everything on a particular goal. You either reach it and hate the person you become while you get there, or you reach it only to learn that the goal post moves again. That's why, for me, being a successful person is not about an end outcome, but it's about being useful because I can control entirely how useful I am to others. I cannot control that the world will give me what I ask for. So to me, it's about being useful. And to me, it's about being happy with the person I'm becoming while I'm on the journey rather than the outcome itself.
Well, that's very interesting. Being useful is to be successful. This is an interesting kind of perspective because it is about, when you say useful, you basically helping yourself and helping other people, and this is one of the things that you are actually doing. You are providing a service basically that is helping other people do certain things, which is actually kind of impressive. But now, talk us through, like, I want to know, and I'm sure the Success Grid Nation that would like to know a little bit about your story. How did you reach to the point where you are right now?
Yeah, so I am a board certified physician psychiatrist in the US. I went to 4 years of medical school, 4 years of psychiatric residency training, and I am now about a year and a half out of that training, so practicing independently. I was first interested in medicine, mostly because I was not sure what to do. And in college, I had a great college counselor that said, Alan, you like science, you like people, maybe you should consider medicine. I said, well, I don't know any better. Okay, no problem. So it was actually by an accident, like a lot of things are. Uh, then I kind of moved into my medical school journey. I found out I actually quite liked psychiatry because it was the only field of medicine that was so unique because every person you talk to had a different story. Whereas in some other fields of medicine, chest pain can only be so many things, headaches can be only so many things. In psychiatry, it's about the person's life story. And everyone knows no two life stories are exactly the same. So I thought that was unique about medicine. And it was the only field of medicine where my own personal experiences could translate to medical practice and vice versa. I quite enjoyed that because I quite enjoyed the stories that people had to share. Now, as I finished my training, I worked as a physician first. So clinical medicine was my first skill, but I believe in stacking skills vertically. And every skill you stack gives you a little bit higher place of leverage. So what initially I started out as is as everyone in my like my peers as a clinician. Then I found a passion for education. And Hussein, I learned that education is the one thing that can affect more people than my clinical skills alone. Because there's only so many people I can see. There's only 24 hours in a day. I'm only one man. But through education, I could spread my influence and help others spread that influence in a greater degree. That's where I learned that education can be a place for uh, spreading my knowledge. And as I started to hire some employees, hire some other clinicians to work with us, we now work with many hospitals in Chicago and provide psychiatric services. And everyone that practices does an excellent job. So I was able to find a niche here where I took my clinical skills, took my passion in education, and then use that as leverage to kind of increase our net effect, at least here in Chicago.
That's important. Like you mentioned, it's about also building the community around you and then going from there, I guess. But you also mentioned you're speaking, of course, based on what you are doing, you are speaking and interacting with a lot of people, different thoughts, different backgrounds, different everything. So, so how does that, let's say, maybe help you personally in a way to improve yourself, okay, and at the same time helped your business itself? Do you think there is some kind of a story there?
Absolutely, Hussein. I think in life, there are two primary teachers. The first teacher is called the pain of experience. And many of us feel that in our own lives in very different categories. But the second teacher is pain or lessons through proxy. And when I say through proxy, I mean by perhaps there are lessons that we can learn not by going through it, but by learning about it through others,
Mhm.
people in our community, by learning about it through the interactions we have on an individual basis, by reading about it, by consuming media about it. And after talking to so many people in my clinical practice, you get a better sense of what the human experience is. You get a better sense at what drives people, what motivates people, what hurts people, and what the challenges are for a lot of people. So I've learned just as much from my clinical practice and my patients than I've ever learned teaching myself. That's for sure.
Mm, definitely. Now, because you had to go through that, and at the same time you're going through, I don't know, is it a tough business? I'm not sure. I don't know the space, but I'm sure every business in general, each entrepreneur, when they go through things, they will hit some kind of roadblocks or blocks in their way. So, what would you say the worst one that you had going through your journey?
So, at its core, Hussein, we run a service-based business, right? And like many service-based businesses, a lot of the bottlenecks are similar. So the bottlenecks to my business as we've been growing it was number one, I am my own bottleneck to the business. What I mean by that is as an early business person, I wanted to become a jack of all trades, learn a little bit about everything. But once you begin this journey, you learn that you can't learn everything. And in fact, the more you learn, the more you understand how you don't know anything at all, which is very overwhelming.
Yeah.
I am now at the transitionary point where I have to now find people who are more experts in these categories than myself and learn to allow them to do the job. So it's an interesting transition where in the beginning, I forced myself to have to do everything. But now I'm learning that there's such limited time, Hussein. I have to learn how to delegate better. And that's exactly where I'm at now.
That's very important. Like sometimes, yes, there is time, but also there is limited time. We cannot do everything at an expert level, I guess, at everything. And like things that you are doing, I guess it requires to educate yourself a lot in the space itself. And we're talking about a business. This is different a ball game, I guess. So two different things at two different speeds, might be two different directions. So there's a lot to do here. But I'm sure that maybe like in this journey you discovered something that is rewarding, maybe helping these people. Like, right? So do you think that from your experience working with these people, I'm sure maybe you have seen some people that want to be, for example, business owners or entrepreneurs, right? So what do you think one of the reasons that are stopping people in general from jumping or making the leap?
I think the thing that stops a lot of people from taking action is a fear of failure.
Mm.
And I think it's the fear, uncertainty, and doubt of taking risk that prevents someone from ever taking a risk at all. But the thing is, there's a difference, Hussein, between flipping a coin in a casino and betting your house versus taking a calculated, informed risk. And what I try to convince others is we take risks every day. For example, many of us drive cars. That is the by far the most dangerous thing we do every single day, with the highest level of mortality associated. But we don't think of it like that. I think if I think when I understood that failure are just lessons that need to be learned, and that I have a decision rather to fail fast, fail now, and learn now at a smaller scale, or fail big later without having learned the lessons of failure. I would much rather prefer to fail now because it's less on the line now. And I know that if I get good at failing, I will take all of that evidence and it will help me make better decisions later when I have bigger opportunities. So I think if fear is the thing that prevents people from taking action, it's changing the idea to fear and action is necessary no matter what. And success, being useful, it's a journey that starts with leaning in rather than leaning away. And I think it's embracing that because once we embrace it, now we're closer to reality, and getting moving is always better than not moving at all.
Definitely. I liked your phrase, fear plus action is necessary no matter what, because this is like we're here in life, like basically living one life. So we have to do something about anything, at least, whatever it is. So that's important. And also, you mentioned here the word opportunities. So people in general, whether it's in business or in life in general, keep saying, my luck, my luck, my luck is bad, man. The reason is like you are basically sitting on the sofa all the time, maybe. You're not thinking, you're not meeting people who are maybe in the similar mindset that you are, or that one of us want to do certain things, we don't do the actions, and always having fears keeping us at the same place. So how would we meet these opportunities if we are not doing some kind of action? So that's very important, don't you think?
You know, there's a great story, Hussein. It's not mine. I actually read it from Naval Ravikant's book. He's a very successful entrepreneur. He shares a story about luck, and he shares a story about this famous scuba diver who is the best in the world. This individual can go to depths unimaginable and withstand all those pressures and is an extreme professional. Well, one day on the other side of the world, there's a shipwreckage, and apparently there's a lot of hidden treasure on the bottom of the floor on the ship. Guess who they called to help retrieve it? The best scuba diver in the world. Now, we might say, hey, that guy is lucky, but is he? Or did he put himself in a position to be lucky? And that's where my belief of you can always outwork and increase your surface area of luck. You know, if your business decisions or life decisions are wholly dependent on luck, you're asking for something from the world that will likely never give it to you. And it goes back to this idea of success. And that's why I go back to my answer of it's about giving and being useful. Because again, if you give, if you're useful, if you do, you're in complete control of that. And perhaps with enough work and inputs, you can increase your surface area of luck as well. So when opportunities do come, you're the first one thought of.
I love that. Increase the surface area of luck. That's very important. Like there could be many people that might be doing the same thing, but it might come down to like this 1.0001% that you are better than anyone else. So you are the chosen one to do whatever it is. So that's surface area of luck is I think Brian Tracy said like luck is when opportunity meets action or something like that. So you have to do something and to improve the skills. And also you talked about the skills because like it is very important to have this combination of things at the same time. One skill is like is okay, two skills is good, three skills, and if you can combine them together is great, four skills excellent, and you know the rest. So you can do unlimited things. Opportunities can come more to you if you do certain things in a certain way. And luck is not just luck or whomever, the grace or God or whatever it is. It is like this, all of these could be combined together, I guess.
I agree.
Yeah, definitely. So, what do you think, or who ever gave you advice that you would think it was the best advice that you ever heard, or the worst advice that you ever heard?
I think I'll answer it backwards, Hussein. I think the worst advice I was ever given are all the pieces of advice given by people who don't understand my context, but had all the right intentions. Because I think good advice, there needs to be an alignment of several things, Hussein. Number one, they have to have absolutely good intentions. Number two, they need to have absolute context of your situation. And without those things, advice isn't really translatable, right?
Mm.
If I were go to a school teacher and ask them how to fix my car, maybe this guy or girl is not the best person to answer this question, right? The best piece of advice I've ever been given was never underestimate how much input it takes to receive a possible outcome. I think everyone has this idea in mind that if they do X amount, they will get Y return. But in the beginning, when you're unskilled like I was, you have to put so much more effort and time on the front end before you ever see anything on that back end. And I think just deciding that I can't have this expectation of the world and that I have to do as much as possible to get to the point where I actually have the skills to result in certain outcomes. It was an important lesson for me to learn because it changed my expectations about business and life in general. Where now I see it as rather than an output scenario, I think of how much inputs is required. And now my usual number, Hussein, we were joking about this earlier, is it always takes a lot more than you think. You know, perhaps you start out thinking it will only take 200 episodes, but then you say, well, it's probably going to take 2000 until we get really good at something. And I take that mindset into almost everything I do.
So you mentioned a few great things like good intentions, context, and also you mentioned in general nowadays we are people in general whenever they're in the world they want like everything yesterday, and I think maybe you have seen that more than me in like 10,000 times. So this is a big issue. Like we think that we put 1% effort into something that we deserve 100% of something.
Mm.
But we should look at it as we should put 100% into something and expect maybe 1% for that something. Because
Yep.
good intentions, what you mentioned here, good intentions are very important to us as humans, right? In business and life. You don't want to be this sleazy salesperson selling something that is not going to be useful and you know it's not useful. And maybe you are good at convincing people to buy it, but it's not going to be useful for them.
I I recently changed how I use the word deserve, Hussein.
Mm.
And rather than saying, I believe I deserve something should happen, I changed the question to what would have to happen for this outcome to occur? Or is it a predictable outcome based on the inputs? Because to say the word deserve is almost to put it out into the universe as if it should be a guarantee. If I do X, Y should occur. I just don't believe there are many guarantees that we can shout out to the universe. So rather than saying deserve, I just now think of it as what would I have to do to make it unreasonable that the outcome wouldn't be a positive consequence? And that's how I frame it.
Yeah, that's good because, like, I don't know, maybe you don't disagree with me, but generally, the world does not owe us anything. So if you frame it as you deserve, I deserve, maybe you don't deserve, you don't know. Maybe it's this is from our own perspective. It's not from the perspective of other people, which don't matter, but or the perspective of the world itself to us or giving us back that 100% when we give 10%. It's not this is how this is not how it works. I guess so. This is complete reverse of things.
It is Hussein. It kind of goes to this idea that even if I were to say there are reasons I don't have the success that I want, and even if those reasons were valid and true, it may not be my fault, but it's still my problem. And I think until I understand it's my problem no matter what, I'm unable to make it my own, and therefore I'm unable to do anything about it.
Mm.
That's what I'd say about that.
Cool. So, Alan, what would you say some tools, resources, or maybe books that you would might recommend to people in general?
You know, I have a strong belief that having some foundation of knowledge in some of the greatest philosophical minds is probably a good idea for most people. It helps with decision making. Um, I think books that have to deal with mental models are very helpful in terms of learning the fallacies of logic and how to think or not to think. From the entrepreneurial space, I personally like reading and listening to folks like Naval Ravikant and Alex Hormozy, who have kind of, at least from mid 2000s until now, kind of been a great blend of philosophy, psychology, entrepreneurial spirit all in one. And I think Ray Dalio, who's worth billions of dollars here in the US, once said, being successful is just about seeing reality faster and clearer than everyone else. And it's all this other stuff that we put out into the universe, the deserve frame or the should frame. It should be like this or it shouldn't be like this. It prevents us from seeing reality faster and clearly. And I think if we can teach ourselves these things, we can all learn success.
Definitely. We have to clear our own path and understand our own way and work through it. It does not just appear like a genie in a bottle or something like that, I guess. So so what also I think that talking of the mind, the problem is with us as humans sometimes speaking from earlier points minutes ago, we don't usually want to work our minds. Like one of the hardest things to work as humans is our minds. So we don't want to think generally. We are mostly on autopilot. So when we have this kind of problem or idea that is challenging us a little bit, you kinda don't wanna do it, but you actually this is the thing or the problem that you are should be addressing and doing it and facing and finding solution and resolution for it.
I think the decision comes from answering a simple question. Is it more important to be right or is it more important to grow?
Mm.
Because I think the thing that has prevented me from accepting realities faster and more clearly was plainly my own strong beliefs or ego. Because Hussein, to accept that I would be wrong could be detrimental. Now, as a human being, I think, well, what else have I been wrong about? And your whole worldview can be crumbling before you. And that's why, to your point, I think people in communities like yours in the success grid are very beneficial because we can all talk to each other about these things and we can all grow together in some ways and be more comfortable admitting that it's more important to grow than it is to be right all the time.
I don't think there's any human being is right all the time. The problem with humans in general, we think that we are right, but we are not. There is like almost you have to compromise in general, I guess. You have to look and listen to the other opinions, whether that's business or life, because if you don't hear the other, at least you don't hear the other side, there will be no solution for anything. Uh,
Well, well, going back to my point earlier, there's two teachers in life, the
yeah,
pain of experience or the pain of proxy. And if someone doesn't learn through the pain of proxy, that just means they will have to learn through the pain of suffering and experience.
definitely, definitely. Alan, thank you very much. This was extremely insightful. A great conversation here. Really provided us with an amazing uh, overview of what you do and your wisdom into things that you have done and your experience working with tons of people. Thank you very much for joining me for this episode of the Success Grid podcast.
Thank you, Hussein, and thank you to the podcast.